Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I did my review of the Liam Cameron Ben Whittaker rematch a few minutes after the fight finished. Like I always do that. I don't like waiting because you can sort of second guess yourself. I like my impressions to be, very raw and genuine, and I'll sort of stand or fall by them. And sometimes I'll look back and I'll think, I got that wrong, or what I mean. Now, I left my review video there on the channel, and lots of people instantly were like, what are you talking about? That was clearly a premature stoppage. That was a terrible stoppage. That's one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. Okay, now there's that view. One of the worst stoppages you've ever seen. Terrible stoppage. Okay, there's that. And then over here we've got, well, this proves that boxing's corrupt and Howard Foster was clearly in Ben Shalom's pocket, and Whittaker is a boxer, Ben Shalom Sky fighter, so obviously the fix was in, and all of that is bullshit, okay? That conspiratorial, this proves this because, I think it gives that impression, therefore it can be the only reason, it can be the only conclusion that anyone can come to. That's all bullshit. If you think it was a fix, you're naive. Or you're maybe a little bit paranoid, or you just have that conspiratorial attitude where anything that is kind of 50-50 or could be argued, or even something that, you might think, I completely disagree with that, it must be some sort of conspiracy, because anything in life is down to the Illuminati or the New World Order or the Matrix. That type of mentality I have no time for. I've said it many times on my channel. It's, grow up, basically. Just fucking grow up, okay? Now, does that mean that conspiracies do not exist? No, it doesn't. There are shenanigans that go on in every walk of life, boxing and everything else you can think of. There are genuine big conspiracies that exist in the world, but they are relatively few and far between. Usually it is unscrupulous people taking something that unfolds and manipulating it for their own agenda. That's a far more common thing than people building a conspiracy from the floorboards up. And the same applies in boxing, okay? Now, let's get back to the more sensible argument, which is that it was a premature stoppage. Howard Foster was incompetent, perhaps not for the first time. And I think Liam Cameron was hard done by. That is the more sensible debate to be had, because you can't debate the conspiracy theorist mentality. It's too full of, cottage cheese, candy floss, and other things that make you want to puke, okay? But if you want to talk sensibly, have a sensible debate, okay, let's do that. A sensible debate being, was it a premature stoppage? Okay, my immediate reaction was, no, it wasn't. I'll tell you why, all right? Let me have a little caveat here before I go into it. I have seen far worse stoppages. I have seen fights go on for a long, long time beyond what Liam Cameron was, the sort of punishment that Liam Cameron was shipping. But that's not to say it was necessarily a premature stoppage. There are stoppages that come way, way, way too late when you think, for Christ's sake, stop the fight, Howard Foster has form for this. One of the worst stoppages I've ever seen was actually Howard Foster stopping George Groves against Carl Froch in their first fight. I'll go to my grave, having watched that fight many, many times, thinking that was a ridiculously early stoppage. Okay, so what's the difference between that and this one? Well, Cameron was buzzed badly by a right hand. He threw a lazy left. And by the way, I've watched this half a dozen times now, this stoppage. The right hand, sharp right hand from Whittaker came over, caught him, didn't floor him, but his leg kicked out, it stiffened. He sort of tottered back to the ropes, clearly buzzed. Probably knew where he was, but he was buzzed. Ben Whittaker jumps all over him. starts letting his hands go, boom, 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 skids across the ropes into the corner, Cameron, not throwing anything back, covering up, but punches were getting through to the point where one particular punch, I think it was a right hand, unhinged his legs somewhat, and he dipped into the ropes. He then straightened himself up, and Howard Foster jumped in and stopped it. Could Howard Foster have let it go on for longer? Yeah, definitely could have done. But was he justified in stopping it? Yes, he was. He could. I mean, it was a case of. It was a case of, yeah, I've seen him go longer, but so what? You've got to defend yourself, and B, you've got to throw back. And Cameron wasn't defending himself well enough, and he wasn't throwing back. He could have let it go on a little bit longer, maybe, but it's not. The point I'm making is it's not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. Okay, I've been watching boxing for fuck knows how long, but 40-something years, whatever it is, 45 years, whatever it is, more than that. But I've seen worse stoppages than that, many, many worse stoppages. Now, some people have said, I'll give you an example, G-Man, I watched his video after I'd made my video, and he was sort of adamant this was a terrible, terrible stoppage. Okay, terrible stoppage. I like G-Man, and I'm a little bit, we've hung out together, nice guy. I respect his opinion. And he made one point that I thought that's worth mentioning, and that is that Foster could have stepped in and given him a standing 8 count because Cameron did fall into the ropes. His legs were unhinged by a right hand when he was in the corner, and he ducked down, he sort of fell down, and the ropes were the only thing that kept him up. Okay, you can make that argument. You can make that argument that a standing 8, it could have warranted a standing 8. Okay, but if you look at it again, Cameron then stood back up. It wasn't like he was sort of hanging on the ropes. He stood straight back up. So Foster jumps in and stops it. I'm not convinced. You could make the argument that there should have been a standing 8, but I'm not convinced by that. So to conclude, really, was this the worst stoppage, one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen? Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Okay. Ian John Lewis, he had a couple of, he did some dreadful stoppages. Foster, who I don't have any faith in him, not since the first Groves Froch fight. I haven't had much faith in him either certainly not as a referee. He does stop fight. He has stopped fights too soon. Could this fight have been allowed to continue for a little bit longer? Yes. But is it one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen? No, it's not. And I think the overreaction, and again, I'm going to ignore the conspiracy theorist bullshit because I just don't have any time for those people. But the overreaction of people who do know what they're looking at, who have watched a lot of boxing, who are saying, I thought it was a really bad stoppage. I think it's an overreaction. I don't dismiss their argument. I don't dismiss any serious person's argument, unless they really are talking playground crap. But no, I can respect, people for saying, I really felt they should have carried on this fight for a bit longer. That I can respect that. But I do feel that the reaction in a lot of quarters has been a little bit overblown, a little bit overdone. And I know that a lot of you are going to be, what am I fucking talking about? Oh, I'm unsubscribing. I'm hitting the dislike button. I'm this, I'm that. You're a cunt, blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm a cunt. I mean, I don't care. I'm just shooting the breeze here. I'm giving you my honest opinion, all right? And opinions, as the old cliche goes, are like arseholes. Everyone's got one. But bear in mind, listen to this video that I've done here properly and soak up what I've said. I shall repeat one more time. It could have gone on longer. Yep, okay, I can live with that. But it's by no means one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. Okay, that's that. When all is said and done, when the dust has settled, that's my view of this. By the way, I was hoping Liam Cameron would win. So, but he didn't, did he? But yeah, look, if you got any further comments, leave them below. I don't mind. I'll read them, of course I will. And yeah, hit the like button or the dislike button or hit the subscribe button if you're feeling energetic, or hit the unsubscribe button. Oh, do what you like. What the fuck you do? You know what? You know the drill. Joe Stunner Boxing, spread the word if you don't mind. Good or bad. I'm looking forward to reading what you've got to say. It's a bit of controversy. It's always a lot of fun, isn't it? I think so anyway. Catch you later. Bye for now.